amazed by Prabhupada's explanation. And Prabhupada went into this long discussion. It was interesting. So, of course, then later on, there's one devotee who came to the Hare Krishna movement. And he was really convinced that we went to the moon. And he was excited about it. And he would like to even talk about it. But Prabhupada every once in a while would speak and say, we never went to the moon. And he would get really disturbed. In fact, he'd get so disturbed that, his faith in Prabhupada would be really shaken. And Prabhupada knew how much he was attached to this idea, what the scientist says, that we went to the moon. So, now, one day, Prabhupada's cook, I think it was Palika, I'm not sure, she was cooking for Prabhupada in the kitchen. I was, And she left the ghee on the fire and left the kitchen for a little while. And then when I came back, the ghee was smoking and it was actually caught fire. So she called for help. And this devotee, I think his name was Purushottama, he came to help put out the fire. Now they got fire extinguishers and they successfully put out the fire. But they were covered with soot and smoke. Their faces, clothes, everything. So Prabhupada heard about it and he called for them. So they came in just the way they were, all covered with this soot. And hang off the basis. And Prabhupada looked at this devotee who was so attached to this idea that we went to the moon, and he said, "Oh, Purushottama, you have gone to the moon." Prabhupada really just kind of like turned his screw a little bit. So of course he didn't really want to hear that. But actually, he had such, what we say, attachment to this scientific understanding, apparent scientific understanding, that he left Krishna consciousness because he couldn't agree with that. But here, Prabhupada spends the whole point explaining just how far the scientists are off. Science means actually conclusion, and all I can give is theories. I can't give any conclusions. And they're always changing their theories from one year to another. One theory is there, and then another theory. There's one morning walk conversation, I think it was Hridayananda Maharaj just saying to Prabhupada. The scientists have come up with this new theory, and they have been discussing it, and their conclusion is that this theory is better than the one we had previously, but it's not, we're not exactly sure it's correct. But at least it's a little better than the one we previously had. So that's their hypothesis, that all they can do is assume. But Bhagavatam is scientific. Bhagavatam gives knowledge from authority. And this knowledge is coming from the perfect authority. Evam param param prapta eva rajasam viyu. And knowledge is coming through the cyclical succession. And Srimad Bhagavatam is actually the manifestation of Krishna in literary incarnation. So this knowledge is actually really scientific because it's coming from the original scientific personality, the Supreme Lord himself. And it is understood through the practice of devotional service. Therefore, Prabhupada says we cannot convince the scientists about our information of the universe. It is not possible, he says, because they're so much attached to their ideas. Because if you don't have an idea, some unique theory, then you're not a scientist. So the idea of becoming a scientist or some authority in some scientific knowledge means you have to have something different or something new, right? Something different or something new. But ultimately, there's nothing new. The only new thing is that you have to realize what's already been given. That's the uniqueness about this knowledge, that it becomes realized through the practice of devotional service. So there was another theory I was reading not too long ago where I think it's called the mirrors effect. They use their scientific instruments, they look up into the cosmos, and they apparently see some object. And then they describe the object and give their theories and their conclusions and whatever else they do. And then, after 35 years of research, we realize that it's all wrong. Because what we're seeing is not where it is. It's actually somewhere else. It's called the mirrors effect, or refracted light. The light there's light within the universe that's reflecting the object, or reflecting to another distant part. Apparently, where you're seeing it is not where it is. It's millions of miles from where it actually is. So they said we had to throw out 35 years of research. So how can anybody with any common sense believe these persons? But that's the world today. People want, the scientists, they come up with so many things. Well, what can they do? They can just create more and more confusion. So knowledge is coming from the perfect authority. And knowledge is like one of the biggest problems. And the Hare Krishna movement it shook up our movement a little when Prabhupada translated the fifth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, describing a whole different set of understandings of the arrangement of the universe as opposed to the scientific things that we grew up in school. And Prabhupada saying, well, the moon is actually closer, or actually farther away than the sun. Do you all believe that? I'm sure some of us have some doubts. But Prabhupada says, and he says it's actually Bhagavatam says it's 1,600,000 miles further away than the sun. And Prabhupada accepts the scientific, at least he says, we can say, they say it's 93 million miles away. So you add 1.6 more million miles, and that's where the moon is. Pretty hard to accept. Well, sense perception is always faulty, right? It's always faulty. Sense perception is, what is that verse in Bhagavad Gita? Martas parsas tukuntaya sitpas na sukadukada agapayo nityas tam sitikshna bharata. Non-permanent appearance and happiness and distress is like the appearance and disappearance of the winter and summer season. They rise from sense perception, O ski and apart. And one should just simply tolerate them and not be disturbed. So one person's sense perception is different from another person's sense perception.